back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and yep, I'm standing over here at the surface grinder again. I apologize to any of my viewers that don't care about surface grinding, but this is the latest and greatest item in the shop now, and I've got several things I need to continue to work on here. So hopefully every one of these fixes, if you will, that I need to do to the surface grinder is going to involve machining work on both the lathe and the mill. So even though you may not need to make such a part for a surface grinder or an addition to it, hopefully you'll enjoy the machining, the milling, and the turning, and so forth. First thing you need to look for, or look at on here though, is with this surface grinder, I got all the paperwork, as I've said in previous videos, basically every bit of the paperwork except the invoice. I would have left it unknown what this sold for new, but it sold, final inspection was in September the 7th, 1977. 2 spanner wrenches came with this in the cabinet. Neither one of them will fit this. So one of the things we got to do is make a spanner wrench. Also, I want to make I want to add to the other end of that spanner wrench a socket to take the nut off the spindle right here. This is 11/16 socket, and it will go on there, I think, just enough to get that nut off the first time, but the walls on it are just a little bit thick. So we're going to mount this up in a collet. I think maybe I can find a collet that'll match this outside diameter, and turn just a little bit off of this. Then the other thing I want to try to make in this video is a wheel puller. Once this nut comes off, a wheel puller to go on there. One of those did not come with the mill either. So we'll have a spanner wrench, a socket wrench, and a wheel puller in this video. Okay, a 15/16 collet will fit on the outside diameter of this 11/16 socket fine. I was able to get in there and measure the spindle nut on the or spindle housing on the surface grinder, and I'm reasonably sure 900 thousandths were clear, and this is 930 thousandths, so I don't have to take much off of this. And as you can see in there, it's not round. So let's take 20 thousandths to start with and see if that will make it round. Looks pretty good. Let's see what. That's still showing about 20 thousandths to get it down to 900. Since I can't bring the spindle over here to double check, and I can't really get a good measurement, I'm going to take it out of the chuck here, try it over there, and then be right back. All right, I'm over here back at the surface grinder now, and hopefully you can see I took just maybe 30 thousandths off of the outside diameter. Still got plenty of wall left, and that will go in there, fit in there just fine now. I'm going to set this to the side for now. Once I come up with a piece of material to make the spanner wrench out of, this is going to be attached to the other end. I'm not exactly sure yet how I attach that. Most likely I'll drill and bore a hole that this will press into, and then put a pin in it. We'll see. Right now I want to concentrate on the spanner, and I do have the machine unplugged while I'm doing this. And I've got this proto adjustable spanner here. So it's left-handed thread, of course. So I should be able to carry this over to the workbench and get some good proper measurements on this. All right. This is the first time I've had the wheel off since I've had it. I've been using the wheel that came on it, and it's it's pretty loaded down with some oil right here. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I'll show you after getting a clean dress on it. Here's what would happen. You can see, still got a reasonably clean dress, a little bit of darkness around it. But then you come to this area right here, and that's right where it looks like it's got, it literally got sprayed with oil. So this wheel is probably going to be retired, but right now we're going to work on the spanner wrench and see if we can put these two pieces together to make a spanner wrench and socket wrench. Okay, using the this adjustable spanner wrench, I got the spanner nut off. This is one of the wrenches that came with, that was in the cabinet with the surface grinder. Very nice wrench. Looks shop made, sure it is. And it's labeled surface grinder wrench. But it is too big. Hole spacing is a hole pin. This space is 1 3/4. This is 2-inch spacing on this. So this one's too big. Might be usable, and at some time I may come back and try getting these pins out and putting some in that would match there, because this is good heavy duty wrench here with some weight behind it. This is the other one that was in there. This is a shop made one. Got some pins pressed in on just a piece of flat bar, but it's too small. This one looks like it's probably maybe 1 1/4 or inch and a quarter between centers. So what I'm going to do is press these pins out to save them. Then I'm going to I'll cut this end off, put a couple holes in there to span across here, and then drill just a clearance hole in the middle. All right, I got the end of that spanner wrench that was too small. I got that end cut off. I've dressed this end up. I've used the edge finder and located the center on the y-axis and located the edge on the x-axis. And I've come in 0.375 is where we're going to put our first hole for the spanner pins. All right, now we want to go 1.75 from that, which will make a total of, let me double check my math here, 0.375 plus 1.75, 2.125 on the DRO. And we're going to want a hole in the center. These two holes that I just started here will be for the 1/4 inch pins. I'm going to put a hole in the middle of it and drill it out 1 inch, just as a visual hole. That's all that's for. So that will be at 1.25. And I'm going to drill these out with a 64th, less than a quarter, which would be, of course, 15/64. Drill that out, and then I'm going to ream these two pin holes 1/1000 under a quarter. While I'm set up on this middle hole, I'll go ahead and use this bit to get me a starter hole. We're going to step drill that up to 1 inch. All right, we'll slow it down a little bit. Put the reamer in, finish these two pin holes out. Now we're ready to come back to the center hole and step it out to 1 inch. All right, we got the 1 inch bit in there. Drilled a 1/2 inch. We'll see if that's enough step or if I need to make another one in between. We're going to slow way down now. about 115 RPM. All right, now we're going to switch around to the other end, and I'm going to drill that out for what I hope is going to be a snug fit for the socket. It doesn't have to be a press fit because we're going to have to pin that anyhow. So I'm going to get turned around and get set up for that. Okay, I turned the piece around and step drilled it up. I've got the boring bar in there, or boring head in there now. And I've bored down and I've measured, and it says I got about 43 thousandths left to go. And I've just turned up on the dial. I either turned up 20 thousandths or 40 thousandths. I don't remember if this boring head, if that dial is off the radius or off the diameter. So we're going to see here. All right, of course, I've got the DRO set to 0 there, so I'll get it out here when we can measure it easy. All right, so 893 is what we had before. I'm sorry, 892, and we got 904 now. Let me turn up the same amount again. I didn't make any spring passes before I took my other measurements, so I didn't cut as much as I thought I did. I would love for this to be about a 1,000th interference there, but as I've said before, we've got to pin this anyhow, so if it's a slip fit, that'll be fine. That's about 914. Just going to keep creeping up on it a little bit at a time. All right, before I press that in though, or before I press the pins in this end, I'm just going to carry this over to the belt grinder and put a little radius on these 4 corners here just to make it a little easier to handle. All right, I got the ends rounded off. Got a nice little radius put on the end. These pins, these 1/4 inch pins that going in for the spanner side, I'm just going to press those in with the vise. And I'm going to use a little bit of thread lock in there. Remember, this is a 1/4 inch interference here. I'm sorry, a 1,000th interference. 1/4 inch would be kind of big. All right, so there's the spanner. Let me grab the nut and be sure that fits. Fits just like I measured it. And I'm going to leave the pin sticking out all the way on this to give a little clearance on the wheel housing. So now we're going to swing over here to the press, and I'm going to press the socket in on the opposite side, I believe, so that when these are in, the socket's on the opposite side over here. All right, with the pins down, the socket is going to be up on this side. So let me get a couple of drills in there. And just like the pins, I'm going to put a little thread lock in. But as I've said a couple times already, we will pin this. Last thing we want is to be taking off the wheel and all of a sudden the socket go to turning. All right, that's the bottom. So we have the socket pressed in this side, pins in the other side. So now I'm going to get set up, locate a spring pin, and we're going to put a spring pin through all the way through this. All right, I'm ready to drill now for a 7/32 pin that again will run all the way through this. All right, I may have to take an end mill, carbide end mill, and break that. I got about halfway through, I think, but then now the drill has just stopped. So let me see what I can do. All right, what I've got in 7/32 is a high-speed steel. It's a brand new end mill, but we're going to give it a try and see if it'll cut through that hard socket. That cut right through it like it was nothing. Okay. Well, I did have a little bit of foresight before I set this up to bump this socket up against the vise just in case I had to come in from both sides. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here, is flip it over and come in from the other side. All right, there we are. So now I will carry this over to the anvil on the vise and just drive this pin in. It's going to be a little bit long, but I'll grind it off. Okay, I think we're all finished up now with this tool. We got a spanner on this end with just a little sight hole in the middle there. Got a socket in this end, got it pinned all the way through with a spring pin. Now we're ready to start on the wheel puller. Before that, I've got a piece of 1 1/8" of this old rusty, some more of this old rusty material I've got around here. I'm going to turn this down to whenever it clears up. Then we'll turn down, we'll knurl a section and we'll thread a section. But the center of it needs to be threaded, and we're going to thread that with a 3/8 24. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to begin with. Now I'm going to drill this fairly deep and thread it as deep as the tap will go. All right, my bottom tap will go about 1 1/2 inches. All right, that should have enough clearance there. Of course, I'm not foolish enough to think that I can power tap that all the way, but I am going to start it. Looks like it is going to power tap all the way without any issue. All right, that's the end of the tap. Now I'll put the bottom tap in. But first, let's see if I can get the air hose around without knocking the camera too much. All right, now I'm going to get set up to turn this outer diameter. All right, I've got the live center in now. I've got the turning tool on. As I say, this is the 1 1/8" piece. The threads we need to put on this end are 1 inch by 16 threads per inch. And that will only be about a 1/2 inch of thread down here. There's only just a few threads. So I'm going to turn this for about 2 inches worth here. The final length will probably be no longer than 1 1/4 inches. So I'm going to turn the whole outside diameter just enough to remove any of the pits that's on there. This is 60 thousandths, and I believe that'll probably do it. now let's get a measurement and see where we are. 1.069, and let me measure how much threads. What we're looking at is this internal part right here, and 5 inches is plenty fine. 0.5 inches. So I want to turn this down again another 60 thousandths, and it will be fine if this thread's a little bit loose. So I'm going to go a little under 1 inch here. That's 1 inch and 9 thousandths. So I'm going to take about 12 more thousandths. 998 thousandths, right? Very good. Put a little chamfer on that. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little thread relief in there too. All right, I got to get the change gears in now. And I'll try to get you set up a little bit better where you can see the thread cutting a little better and what you can see that. All right, I'm set up now to start cutting the threads. I made a little scratch pass on there and measured it, and it is 16 threads per inch. And that's as best I could get my thread gauge into the to the hub nut. That's what I determined it was. So we're gonna cut this thread. All right, I don't think that's anywhere near what we want yet, but we're gonna measure lots of times here. Well, if I turn the right side, it might stand a better chance. All right, we got a lot to go. Now, unlike these threads, which are left-hand threads, these are right-hand threads. All right, we're starting on now, so we're getting much closer. Just not quite there yet, very, very close. So that's what we want it to do. We want it to bottom out inside here. So now I'm going to put the regular gears back in. We're going to knurl the section here, and then we'll part it off. All right, I've got the knurling tool in there now. I've got the regular gears back in, and we're going to knurl a pretty good section here, just so we got plenty before we part off. All right, I'm going to see what that looks like. Need some more. That's some pretty hard material here. All right, one more pass back. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Now we want to determine where we're going to part it off. I was able to thread in there. Let's see, my tap went in about 1.5 inches. All right, so we're going to go with 1.5 inches. And if that's not quite, or if that's too long for the bolt that I've got, we can always use a piece of threaded rod there. All right, I think we're ready to part off now. Before that part's completely off, we want to put a good chamfer on there to match the other side. All right, I suspect that piece is going to be kind of worn, so I'm not just going to reach down there and pick it up. I'm going to cool it off, deburr it, and then we'll look at the last piece we've got to make for this. Okay, y'all should have reminded me there was one more thing I needed to do before I parted it off, and that is bore out in this end down here clearance for the spindle bolt to come out. We only need threads in this end down here where we're parted. This down here will slide over the bolt as it screws in. So I don't think we're going to have any problem. I believe that'll go in that same collet. And I'm going to drill this out with a 5/8. It's a 1/2 inch. It's a 1/2 inch stud bolt in the end of the spindle. But I'm going to use a 5/8 just to give some clearance. All right, I'm going to zero out the DRO right there. And we're going to want to come in 0.6 inches, 0.55, something like that. All right, I'm going to check this out over there on the surface grinder. I need to cool it off a little bit first. Then the last piece we'll need to do, I'm going to take this 3/8 24 bolt. I'll turn the head off of it, and then drill and tap or drill it for a press pin in there to make a T-handle out of. All right, I'm going to deburr this, and then I'm going to carry this over and press the pin in, and I'll meet you back on this. Make a T-handle out of this. I'll meet you back over on the surface grinder, and we'll conclude this video. All right, let's do a quick recap of the tools we've made in this project and how they're used. This is the hub. It is tapered on there. The spindle is tapered. Mounts on. A wheel mounts on. Washer. and then the spanner nut. Remember, the spanner nut is left threads. So the spanner wrench that we made, it will be used to tighten that down, and all it don't need any bearing down at all, just needs snugging. Because as this rotates, it will tighten. Then the spindle nut goes on the inside. And again, it is left-handed, left threaded. And again, it doesn't need to be torqued down. So that's in there tight. Now, where does this come in? The wheel puller. When you get ready to balance a wheel, you've dressed it, you get ready to balance it. You want to balance it with the hub attached to the wheel. So we want to take this apart, leaving the hub and the spanner nut in place. And it might just pull right off, but if it doesn't, this threads in. And just a couple of turns once we get it bottomed out here. And that's all it takes. And it's right off. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it'll be a little use to you. I'm going to clean my hands up and put a new wheel on and get it dressed. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.